Welcome to Storm Tracker, your eye on the storm of your Carolina Hurricanes, and your home for the best insight and analysis to keep you totally informed on what's happening with the Canes. Whether it's the latest news on the ice or off the ice, we've got you covered. Now let's begin. Here's your host, Tom Ray.
Well, the Carolina Hurricanes continue to impress this season, currently sitting at second overall in the East, and doing so under a great deal of early adversity. They've been on a roll, winning 5 of their last 7, while outscoring the competition 26-18. The Canes' defensive core has been decimated with injuries. The forward lines have been in flux. Special teams have been struggling, and yet the Canes just keep on winning. How are they getting it done? What have we liked in recent games? And what areas could use improvement? Joining us to talk about that and more, I'm delighted to welcome in Rachel Barkley. Great to have you joining us, Rachel. Now, Rachel shares her insightful Canes commentary both on X, and you might have seen her Substack, Queen of the Puck. So it's great. Ladies, how are we doing tonight?
Doing great.
Doing great.
All right, so we're ready to talk hockey. That's great. Okay, so Rachel, before we do that, why don't you tell us a little bit about your hockey experience? How did you get into it? Why the Canes? Share some of that with us, please.
Well, I got into it when I was a kid. I got into it actually through video games. It was the Mario and Sonic Olympic video games that Nintendo put out like 10 years ago. So I started playing it, and the hockey mini game was my absolute favorite. And that really piqued my interest in the sport. Fast forward a couple years, sit in the living room, nothing on TV, flip it over to a Canes game, and fell in love. So the absolute favorite sport from that moment on, basically. And my dad walked in, he was like, "You like hockey?" And I was like, "Yeah, I love hockey. This is great." He's like, turned out he loved hockey when he was a kid, and he was obsessed with it, but then he ended up, not really being able to follow along as he got older. And so I got into hockey and dragged the whole family with me.
Well, that's a great story. It's interesting you mentioned the video games. I'm a retro gamer, and I've got hockey games going back to the originals that they started to do on video games. So sometimes I pull those out and play those as well. So it's great fun. Anyway, that's great, Rachel, and we are really delighted to have you with us tonight, and we're looking forward to all the great conversation we're going to have together. So, Canes have been they've been doing great considering, and I talked about it at the start. I mean, the defensive core has been decimated. We've hardly even seen Jacob Slavin. We saw him in the broadcast booth the other day, but we don't see much of him on the ice these days. And of course, a host of other injuries: Gostisbehere, Chatfield, Miller, and now Charles Alexis Legault is gone probably for the season. So this is hard to believe. What are we thinking about this defense? How could they work through this and still win games? Rachel, thoughts?
Sheer determination and probably a lot of prayer. So, they got it rough, but they got it going though. And that's really incredible. I think it really kind of speaks to not just, the system and everything, the playing style, but I think it also probably speaks to things beyond the stats, the locker room, how they bring in these rookies and everything. And I mean, those rookies, a lot of them are playing like professional, like they've been a veteran of who knows how many years, but this is their first few games really in the league. Incredible.
Yeah, and you talk about the rookies, and we're going to spend a few minutes on some of them in a minute too, because I mean it's just astounding how they've come in. Some of them have just come in from nowhere, literally, and stepped in and been playing some big minutes. And we'll talk a little bit about some of those players shortly. But I wanted to kick it off with Sean Walker. You know, we love Walker. We talked about him a lot in other podcasts. We always look forward to see what Sean's going to do, but he has just really stepped up his game. And Katie, I know you're a big fan of Sean. Why don't you kick it off on Sean Walker?
I'm thrilled with how well Walker has done. He really is the only one at the moment who was with the Canes last year, at least, during the regular season, that is still manning the blue line with Burns and Orlov signing elsewhere, and then the injuries. It's been up to Walker, and this is only his second year. So what a challenge for him, because we know just how demanding the Kane system is, and he's really stepped up in a big way. He's played with lots of different D partners, some out of experimentation, but most of it out of necessity. And he's really held his own and been strong. You look at the stats, and perhaps they're not as shiny as we would want them to be, but he's already outpacing his production by far offensively. And, we know that he's getting the really tough matchups. And so he is logging a lot of minutes, and he's going against the best players for other teams. And so that is going to definitely present a challenge, but he has taken it all in stride. His work ethic is off the chart. And it's been really great to see him come into his own in the Kane system, because it was something that Tulsky and the front office staff obviously believed in, or they never would have given him that 5-year contract. Right. So it's been really good to see him anchor that particular defensive core. And I do think it also goes to show that the Canes missed him last postseason more than perhaps we realize, when he was the one who was injured, because maybe the story would have turned out different against Florida if he had been there instead of Morrow as the right-hander who stepped up in to help replace him. So he's been huge, and I think he has even more to give. So I look forward to seeing how that works out.
Well, that's interesting when you talk about Scott Morrow. Scott Morrow's in the American Hockey League right now, and Sean Walker's playing upwards of 24 minutes a game. I think that's clear that he would have made a big difference last year. Walker, we talked a lot about his offense last year. It's interesting. We kept saying he can give more. He's a guy that he skates well. He carries the puck extremely well, sees the ice well, and we just, we're looking for him to do more. Of course, he was playing alongside Shane Gostisbehere, and he kind of deferred more to the defensive side, I think, last year. Whereas this year he's been playing power play. He's been getting a chance to really show what he can do offensively. I think if we didn't have Sean Walker, I'm not quite sure where we'd be right now, but he's definitely been doing the job for them. Another person who's been doing the job, and we talk about him a lot, and he just keeps on rolling to keep doing it, is Alexander Nikishin. And you know that I'm a massive Nikishin fan. Of course, I followed him closely with SKA St. Petersburg last year, and was talking with Nick Bass repeatedly about when he gets here, he's going to be great. And, we had a bit of a cup of coffee in the playoffs last year, and it was a tough situation for him, but boy, he's showing it now. Erin, what are your thoughts on Alex Nikishin?
I've loved watching him take on these really heavy minutes that he's had to take on. And, we did see a little bit of a step back from that in the last game, the loss that they had, the other night. But because he was once again paired with Shane Gostisbehere, who came back. So that's good, right. Good news on that front. But giving him all that extra time while there haven't been other players to take those minutes has helped him, I think, to solidify the learning process. The development curve has gone quicker than expected. Yes. I think, you were pointing out his plus minus of 14 is tied for third best in the league right now. So, that's pretty impressive given the tough matchups he's had to take on and the heavy minutes he's had to play. I know that we all know that there's room for more, but it's just incredible how quickly he's improved from what we saw in the playoffs last year, just knowing where to be, knowing what to do, that communication coming along. And I think a lot of people have noticed that he's developed quite a natural but very good chemistry with Andrei Svechnikov. The two of them on the ice together can literally communicate, which is very helpful. But the kind of combinations that they've, that working together on some of the plays that have gotten Svech kind of back in our good books. I think Nikishin's been a big part of that because that's a lot of responsibility on the one hand for Svechnikov to be the main source of any translations needed, but on the other hand, the two of them being able to communicate quickly on the ice is helping, I think, to make some of those moments even smoother. So I can't wait to see how he's going to look by the halfway point of the season. I think it's going to be incredible, and I think that unfortunately, Calder conversations usually end up revolving around points, and that they really shouldn't. How many points a player has, it shouldn't be the biggest factor. But even without that, I think that Nikishin should be in those conversations and should be, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him as one of the finalists if he continues to play the way he's playing now.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that, Erin, because I did hear on another broadcast the other night somebody saying exactly that the way Nikishin's playing, he may be in the conversation. I think he's fourth right now in rookie defenseman scoring. And, again, just finding his way. A couple things that I've noticed that really have been, I think, exciting for me is that he's communicating a lot more now. If you watch him, he seems like he's talking to people all the time. I'm not sure what he's saying to them, but it seems like he's having conversations with them, and he's talking on the bench. He's talking, on the ice. He's doing all kinds of stuff. And the other thing that I really like about him is when they score a goal and he's out there, he is excited. Man, he's excited. You notice he runs right up to the blue.
Nice.
Just like crazy, right? I mean, I love that. And it's just his joy for the game. You can just see it. He loves the game. He loves playing the game. And I think the road trip was a great thing for him too. Where they get a chance to get away for a couple of weeks, bond together. He starts to become one of the guys, right? And you can see it. He's starting to really feel, and obviously getting the playing time he's getting. And Tim Gleason, he trusts him. He puts him out with a minute left, 2 minutes left. He puts him on the PK. He puts him out there against the top lines. He doesn't care. Get over the boards, like let's go. So, I'm thrilled. We're all excited. I think, the early concerns that folks had, is he going to be the player we thought he was? I think the answer is starting to come pretty clear. He's going to be that and maybe more. So lots of excitement with Alex Nikishin. Now, talking about folks coming in from nowhere, literally, and getting it done, how about Joel Nystrom? This guy, again, coming over from Sweden, coming to play with Chicago. He's been playing over there in the professional league for about 5 years now. So he's a little older. He's 23. So he's been playing with men like Nikishin. He comes in, he's given the keys, and away he goes. Rachel, what have you seen with Joel Nystrom?
I have absolutely loved his game. He has done very well, exceptional, a lot better than I had anticipated, because his game has been just kind of quiet, and that's what you want from a defenseman, because, in my opinion, because whenever you have rookies and stuff and people playing their first games in the NHL, usually it's a little more noisy. They're trying to force things, they're trying to make that big first impression, but he does not have to impress anyone, because he's already impressed everyone just by being who he is and going out there and getting it done. I mean, he's dug in, and I've loved watching it.
And Katie, what have you seen with Joel?
I definitely agree with Rachel. He's earned the trust. Even when Legault was in the lineup, it was Nystrom who was slotted higher and given more minutes. So you can see that the coaching staff really trusts him. And whatever time he spent with Chicago before he got called up obviously helped, because they run the same systems there. And so it was just translating it to a little bit faster game, but not a whole lot of new concepts or new expectations as far as that was concerned. And that I think has made a huge difference in the game. And he's really helped to kind of stem the bleeding, so to speak, when it comes to all of the injuries, and given the Canes a good option of someone to help fill in behind that, the top D pairing, whatever that top D pairing happens to be that night.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, there have been some games, and we've had a number of games, it seems, where we end up with 5 defensemen, and players like Nystrom and, of course, Nikishin have been not logging some big minutes. Hey, Erin, when you look at a guy like Nystrom, and I particularly am interested in this, is when you see him playing, why do you think he's able to come in and be as effective as he is?
To me, and I'm not the most versed in what you watch for in defensemen, but to me, what I noticed, in fact, I just was paying attention to this in the last game, his positioning is really good. He seems to know where to be and where to get, how to get there. His vision for the developing plays and getting himself, maybe this is when you pinch, maybe this is when you fall back. I think he's had like one bad pinch since he's been here, and that was, just an unfortunate breakdown in communications. But other than that, if he's pinching, it's usually very solid because he knows the coverage is back there. And if he's falling back, it's because he can tell that it isn't. So you never seem to see him out of place. You never seem to see him rushing back to get into position. So that's the thing that I found the most impressive so far, because that is the kind of thing that usually in Rod Brindamore's system takes players a little time to figure that out because of the complication of the man-to-man defensive system and, some of the other things that they do that are different from the average NHL team. We have seen many defensemen, even veteran defensemen, I would say Orlov would be one of them, who really struggled at the beginning to figure that out, and eventually they get it, but it takes time. But for Nystrom, like you said, he's playing that system in Chicago, so the familiarity is there, but to be able to do it with the pace and the speed needed to execute at the NHL level is really impressive from someone who's, only played a handful of NHL games. So that's what I've noticed myself.
No, and I think that's great. And, he's a very smart player. You can tell just the way he thinks the game. And I mean, a couple of things that really stood out to me is he made some plays on the PK. Like he shot down the ice. He got 2 or 3 times to get it and fire it down the ice. It was amazing. It's like he's been around forever. What's he think? He's Jacob Slavin? So that was kind of cool. And you're right in the offensive zone. He kept the puck in, and it was in play numerous times. And he fired the puck a lot. Like they kept saying, he's going to get a goal, like he's going to get a goal. And the guy that ends up getting, of course, is Charles Alexis Legault. And speaking of that, I think Legault as well. Shout out to Charles Alexis Legault. And we all like him. We talked a lot about him. I know, Katie, you really like Charles Alexis Legault, and rightfully so. He's come in and he's certainly done well, I think. So unfortunate to see him go out, and most because it's affecting his career. I mean, he was in a great place. He was going to go back to Chicago. He would have been one of the anchors down in Chicago as well. It's just sad that he's going to miss several months of hockey. So, but he's also been another one of those guys that has just been thrown in the breach. And in fact, I think his last game, he might have played 18 minutes and was, he ends up getting a goal and an assist. And I mean, what else, right? So that's great stuff. So, defensive core, rookies, I don't think you could have written a better script. And Rod Brindamore has said this numerous times in his post-game quotes and other situations where he's been talking about them, and rightfully so. So now, the other part of this situation right now, as we go into some of the the success areas through this run for the Canes, they finally put Nikolaj Ehlers with Logan Stankoven and Jackson Blake, right? And I know, Katie, you were looking forward to that. So I'm going to hand off to say, what do you see with this line now that's got Blake and Stankoven and Nick Ehlers?
Well, I think it was pretty obvious for a while there that Ehlers on that top line, there were just too many distributors and not enough finishers. And putting Ehlers on that second line means that there's still that veteran presence there with the young guys and Blake and Stankoven, but somebody also who is going to drive the play, who's going to distribute the puck, whose creativity really feeds into the wheelhouse of who Stankoven and Blake are as players. He got the lone goal in the Capitals game, and a lot of that had to do with the playmaking that was set up to Blake, and Blake drove the net, and then Ehlers was there to finish it off. So it's and it's not like that's the only goal that particular trio has produced. If you look at Hockey Viz and you see the line mates Ehlers has, there's a very distinct delineation between when he switched from the Aho line to the Stankoven line. And all of a sudden, once that switch happens, though, whoop, the production goes way up. And so he's creating more chances. It's not just the goals. He is creating more chances. There's more expected goals. Mm-hmm. And that line's defensive numbers have also gotten better because they're controlling puck possession, because he's gaining the zone. They're creating those rush opportunities. If there's second chances, they're recovering the pucks in the corner. They're digging them out. They're cycling them back up high to the D and starting over again and just hitting the opposing team with chance after chance after chance. And it's looked so good, and they've only been together a few games. And so as they get more and more accustomed to each other, I think we can only expect that their reads and their finishing on these sorts of plays will improve and their accuracy will get better as time goes along. So I'm really, really encouraged with this new second line.
Well, what do you think? I mean, if we look at, the contribution of Nick Ehlers, struggled to get anything going. All of a sudden, it seems like it's easy for him. Erin?
Well, there again, you could just have the usual situation where, players take some time to get comfortable playing the system, especially when you look at someone who has played his entire career in one city. Mm-hmm. It does take time to just, figure out how things are and just all those little things that add up, even just in the locker room and the game day processes, everything's just a little bit different. So I think that, expecting him to come out and, immediately make an impact was maybe a little bit unrealistic for fans, to be thinking that was going to be the case. But again, like Katie said, I think that also when you look at Ehlers, he's a player who has typically not played on the top line,
right?
And that can be a lot of pressure, to start making things happen and to start, I think that the people feeling that pressure were probably Aho and Jarvis, because we saw them trying again and again and again to set Ehlers up for that all important first goal. And that was just not happening. And the more they tried to force it, the less it was going to happen. So honestly, seeing him succeeding so well with Stankoven and Blake, I think a lot of it has to do with what Katie said about the fit just being there for those three. Yes. But I wouldn't rule out if there's line scrambling, as we know with Rod Brindamore there will be. It's not this is not a set it and forget it kind of situation. We know that there will be more Twitter line controversies as the season goes on. But if he was to go back up to the top line and play beside Aho, I think that just being as comfortable as he is now in the system and with the line he's on, that's only going to help. So, I would like to see him stay on that second line for as long as possible. I think they're doing a great job, and I think that that's something the Canes really need, because especially that 5-on-5 offense has been hard to come by. And right now with the power play, and we're going to get to that in a minute, but with the power play being in such a dry spell, you have to have production at 5-on-5. And when the top line isn't able to get it done, you don't want that to be the case of, then the game's over because we don't have anything coming from the Aho line. So you never want to be in that situation with your top line. So I like Ehlers on the second line. I hope he gets to stay there for at least a good stretch of games.
Well, you made an interesting comment. Remember last year when Mikko Rantanen came, we had a very similar situation. They were trying to set up Mikko, and the line was not effective, particularly Aho. So I think, you've hit a point where, they bring in these prize players, and all of a sudden things kind of go south on them. And, coincidentally, of course, and we'll talk about in a minute, is that Andrei Svechnikov has really been playing very, very well. So it kind of helps the whole system of putting, Ehlers back on that second line quite a bit. Now, just to wrap up the second line, hey, Rachel, what are you thinking about with Jackson Blake these days?
Oh, he has been incredible. And it's like he was great last season, and this season he's even better. He's more responsible with the puck, and he has more guts with the puck too. He's really shooting a lot. He's getting a lot of really good chances, and some good goals, as we've seen.
Beautiful.
Really fantastic. Yes.
Well, Jackson Blake, one thing I've noticed, he is quicker, in my view. You notice he's going down the ice incredibly fast. Like it's incredible. And of course, he's got this thing where he's got a magnet with the puck. Like he just hangs on to it. I am surprised that he's kind of playing as well as he is. I didn't expect him to be kind of as significant, because last year he was on the fourth line for a while. He was kind of moving around. He played well for a while, and then, kind of typical first year, I guess. But boy, he looks like a different player to me. Like he's kind of frightening when he gets on the ice. And this is exciting for the Canes. And I think, again, the Canes have been trying so hard to come up with a second line that can deliver offense. We've talked a lot about the concerns with, putting all the pressure on Aho's line. And, we see Aho, he's a guy that is being asked to do so much. And, he fits better in a 1B than a 1A. We've talked about that, but he's being asked to do 1A and more. So, if you can get a second line that can take some of that pressure off, it's great. Now, the other member of that line has been kind of a fun guy. And I know, Rachel, you had something that you were probably looking at with this little scuffle that he got into and some battles that Stankoven got into. What are you seeing with Stankoven? Rachel, what are you seeing with him as well?
He's been incredible as well. Last season when we got him, he was able to basically fit in no time, and he's continued just to kind of grow, and I've loved how he's played as a centerman. He was great as a winger, but I think that him as a centerman really kind of fits him, fits where he's at. And he's got the guts to handle a centerman because he's only 5'8". He's pretty small, but that doesn't seem to bother him a bit. So he's good. Yeah, I like it.
Erin, what are you thinking about with Stankoven?
Well, I'm pretty much agreeing with what Rachel just said there. I think that it was fun watching him do that little fight last night to drop the gloves. He said he really enjoyed it. You want to see that kind of spirit. But I know that behind the scenes they're telling him, we loved that. Don't ever do it again. Because we've had enough injuries, and there are guys that, I think it was last night that Max Domi went up against Nikita Zadorov, which was not a wise decision by any means. So we don't want him to become, the scrappy guy that's out there trying to fight everybody. But under the circumstances, it was a great thing to see. So I like that. I like his. I like how intelligent he is with the puck. I like that he's good at figuring out which of his line mates are in good position. But he's also not at all hesitant to shoot. And that's something that I think we need from all of our centers, honestly, because maybe at least some of them. I mean, I like when Jordan Staal shoots the puck. I just wish it would happen when he can actually get it into the net. But I mean, in general, though, our centers are not the guys even Jordan Staal, they're not the guys who take the first shot, even if they're open. They're standing in front of the net with the puck, and they're like, okay, who's open? I mean, who can I get it to? Instead of having that shoot first mentality. So I like that Logan Stankoven has that shoot first mentality. He will certainly give the puck to Blake. He will certainly give the puck to Ehlers. He will even drop it back for a pinching defenseman if that's the right play. But if he's got it and he's got a lane, he's going to shoot it. And it doesn't matter how far back he is because, again, his size does not impede that in any way, shape, or form. So that's been nice to see. I would like that to rub off particularly on Aho. I would really like Stankoven's willingness to shoot the puck to rub off on Sebastian Aho and, maybe kind of get that to the point where Aho is also the scoring threat that we know he can be because, certainly he can be.
Well, yeah, exactly. And, we look at his development for sure. And there are some things that Logan's going to have to work on. Katie, are you seeing anything that you think he might need to work on?
Oh, perhaps just this little issue of face-offs.
Yeah.
He is don't think struggling even properly defines what's going on with the faceoffs. It's been a huge learning curve for him, and his faceoff production is very, very low right now. I think a game or two ago, there was even an entire first period when he went 0 for on the faceoffs. So he continues to work with Brindamore, though. We've seen various clips of Brindamore working with him and tutoring him and giving him some pointers as far as that's concerned. So I think, it might not come in the way that we're used to with the Canes as far as that is concerned, but perhaps it will improve enough that it will allow all of the other good parts of his game to show up. The other thing that has been really good with this line, and I would say this is particularly because of Blake, is even if Stankoven doesn't win the faceoff, if he can just not lose it clean, Blake has been taught how to jump into the area. So even if it's lost or it's still in the skates or whatever, he's the one that often comes out with it. And that will really help the situation with that particular line as far as either gaining or regaining control of the puck and being able to set up and create all of the opportunities that they have been creating. So there's room for improvement there, but I think it will come. It'll just be a lot slower than we're used to seeing on a Rod Brindamore team.
Yeah, and there's so much to be excited about with that line. Because, we see Jackson Blake taking the next step. He's starting to look like a real serious player. We've got Nikolaj Ehlers is now feeling comfortable, and we heard a lot about that this week. He had to go to 3 grocery stores, I guess, to get whatever he wanted to cook dinner. So that was kind of fun when he was talking about living in the Raleigh area. A little bit different than Winnipeg, I suppose. For certain, it's going to be a lot warmer this winter, so he's going to enjoy that. But he's starting to really feel comfortable as well. And I think, it's back to, we had talked a lot about, this, getting to a new team and becoming a part of it and feeling comfortable and some of the challenges. And we talked a lot about that with Alexander Nikishin. And, we didn't really think much about it with Nick Ehlers, but it's the case. As you say, he was in Winnipeg for 11 years, I think. And all of a sudden, here he is sitting in Raleigh with a bunch of folks he doesn't know and going to a different, dressing room and trying to find the grocery store. I mean, it's funny when you think about it, but it's true. He's trying to get his cadence with all of this stuff. So he's starting to feel comfortable. You can see the difference. And he's been starting to pot the goals. I think he's got 3 goals in his last, 5 games, I guess. So he's really starting to come along. Okay, so great stuff on that line. What are we seeing with the other lines? We've got, of course, Jordan Stahl's line is always the Jordan Stahl line. And what do we see maybe with Sebastian Aho and his crew? Any quick comments on those guys? Erin, you want to kick it off?
Sure. I think that it's great to see Carrier back with Stahl and Martinook. I think that that's an important development for that line. It always feels like some of the worst line scrambling happens when somebody can't play on Stahl's line who is supposed to be playing on Stahl's line, because who do you put in? That line always works so well as a unit that you don't want to, you just throw up any winger that you have on hand and put them up there. So having Carrier back has been really important. They have had some struggles these last few games. I think that someone mentioned that Stahl has been a minus in his last 4. So, he is not in the plus. He's not been in the plus column at the end of the game. He's been going up. He always goes up against the hardest competition. You can't necessarily read too much into that. That's why that stat is not a stat that you should rely on for everything. But the way that Jordan Stahl usually plays, we don't see him stay in the minus column for long. So I think that we'll see that, once they've gotten just this couple of days break that they're having right now, because it's been a lot of games very close together, and a lot of those little short travel trips where, you're on a plane, you play, you come back. I mean, it's not any better than a long road trip, other than getting to sleep in your own bed. So hopefully that will improve. And then with Aho and the trio of Svech, Aho, and Jarvis, I think we all like Svech up there. He's been playing really well. I think Aho needs to get a little bit of a little bit more going. We've talked about that with him, I think, in general. We've seen some good moments over the recent stretch. But against the Capitals, that line really, really struggled, and they were at the bottom of the hockey stat card chart and everything else, so it wasn't just the eye test, it was everything. So, but although interestingly enough, the possession numbers for the Canes against the Caps were ridiculously high. So they had possession of the puck more often than they didn't, except in the first period. So it's just one of those games. But you look at that and you say, again, fatigue could very well be a factor given how many minutes that line plays, how many games they've had in a row, over a short stretch of time. So I think that we'll see that line bounce back pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the challenges this year is this schedule is so condensed at certain points that like they just played 4 in 6 days. I mean, it's no wonder they, were a little bit tired playing up against the Caps last night. I've been concerned with Jordan simply because we've talked about this a lot, as he's aging, these tough schedules are going to weigh on him. And so, not surprising that he's not firing on all cylinders all the time, but hopefully, as you say, with an extra day of rest, he might be ready to go again. Any thoughts on this, Katie?
I do think that it was good to move Svech back up to the top line. He spent some time for a while there down on the fourth line and the third line. And he is just the type of player, the way that he processes the game and operates in the game, whether he's going well or not, he really struggles to play kind of that grinder mentality of hockey. He is a creative force in a big body, and he needs to be playing with other line mates that bring that out in him. He doesn't need to be with Stahl and Martinook teaching him how to be a grinder, someone who fights for pucks in the corner. He knows how to go after pucks in the corner, but he needs to play with other guys that can finish the opportunities that he's creating, and he has been creating them. There have been a couple of assists that he has had that have just been beautiful. And like mentioned before with Nikishin, that he seems to find that particular combo really electric as well. The two of them have fed off of each other, so if you can have that going, I think it's going to be very important for Brind'Amour not to take him off of that top line. He needs to be up there with that talent. And those three know each other. They have played with each other over multiple seasons together, off and on, here and there. And if he's going, it will really help the rest of the line to get going. And I think it'll help Aho perhaps just kind of not grip that stick quite so tight and let him find his scoring touch once more. He doesn't need to feel the pressure of trying to set up Ehlers. He's got Svech there. He knows what Svech is about. He's got Jarvis there. He knows what Jarvis is about. And they can really start getting into a groove together and being more successful as a top line, because they need to produce more. They need to produce more as the top line. It's great to have balanced scoring, but the top guys need to be the ones leading the way there, not bringing up the end there.
Well, and you're right. And I mean, one thing about Svech, against the Caps, he had several great opportunities. Like he was getting in, he had some breaks where he got in and got clear shots. He was firing the puck hard. Logan Thompson was tremendous in goal, and it was hard to beat him. So, they did have some chances, and I thought Svech played a particularly good game. So he's definitely continuing with his confidence. And I've said this a number of times, is when he's feeling good about himself, he can play. And he showed this last year in the playoffs, but he gets in this sometimes in these funks where he's kind of all concerned about what he's doing, and he loses his confidence. And when he's playing a heavy game, as we know, that makes a big difference. And speaking of that, a guy that's been playing a heavy game lately has been Jesperi Kotkaniemi. And so with that, Rachel, what are you thinking about the other line that we have with Kotkaniemi, Robinson, and of course Taylor Hall?
Electric. They have been so good for a fourth line. I mean, when Eric Robinson came back, I was like, let's see. Hopefully they'll be able to pick back up, because I remember they was really good earlier on before he was injured. And when he came back, I mean, they're awesome. I don't have any gripes at all about that fourth line since he's come back.
Well, the interesting thing is, we talk about Aho's line has to help out with the scoring. If we can get some offense out of that fourth line, and they were effective at the start of the year before injuries kind of derailed them and they started moving Taylor Hall to the top line and some other places. I think there's some real potential there. And Erin, what are you thinking about with Kotkaniemi? I know you're all over KK. What are you thinking about with Kotkaniemi?
Yeah. Well, I think that, I've liked these last few games. I think once he got moved back to center, it's always such a strange thing to see him playing wing because he does not play the position as well. And that's pretty unusual for a forward. Usually every forward out there can play wing, and a lot of them just played center because they were the best guy on their team in junior, so there's a lot of guys that come into the league listed as a center, and they should never go anywhere near the center of the ice. And I think we can use Marty Necas as an example. He's our famous example because he played center quite a bit in his junior years. He even played a little bit of it in Charlotte when that was the affiliate back then. But Necas is not a natural center in the sense of being able to play it better than he plays wing. And, so for Kotkaniemi, it's kind of the opposite. You don't want him at wing. He doesn't play as well at wing. It was necessary because of the injuries. I think it's necessary because Jankowski definitely plays, a solid game at wing and is probably also not as effective on the wing, rather. He plays effective at center. So you got two guys, both of whom can play center. You're going to put the one who doesn't play as many NHL games there so that he's not struggling to figure out where he needs to be, because I don't think Jankowski's played wing very much with the Canes, maybe once or twice,
No, not
so
much.
But having KK back at center, I think that you see the physicality is there. I was noticing he's up to 23 hits on the season right now. He's actually, I think that of the forwards, it's just, I think it's just Svechnikov and Martinook. Maybe there's just like 3 forwards that are ahead of him. With his ice time, that's pretty good. So I know that's what they want out of him. So that's a good sign to see.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is he's been really firing the puck. Like he's feeling much more confident. Like he's out there looking for the puck and he wants to shoot it. So okay, is that Kotkaniemi or who's in his body right now? It's kind of funny. But yeah, I think he's playing well. And, Robinson is the glue. We talked a lot about that before. And, he's the glue. And the other thing I noticed, I don't know if you saw this, Katie, last night, but I thought Taylor Hall was flying.
Yeah, he has had his moments. I still struggle with his game. I feel like he'll have brilliant flashes, but then there are other times just wonder what in the world he was thinking in that moment. But a lot of those questionable decisions, shall we say, were when he was playing above his head. I don't think he was meant to be on the first line or on the second line. I think he had slotted best at the fourth line, and his pride might not like to think that after his history. But the Canes have an elite fourth line. There are many teams in the National Hockey League that would kill to have a fourth line that strong. And his skill set fits what KK and Robinson also bring. And so, and I think he also plays freer. He doesn't have to have those defensive responsibilities that the rest of the line do in the pressure, because the matchups are easier. It's not that he gets to just take the night off, but the likelihood of being burned for whatever choices he's making is a lot lower. And so I hope they can get their group back. Robinson's injury really kind of threw a big wrench in the success they were having, because before that happened, that line was just phenomenal, and Hall was a big part of it. And he's, in a lot of ways, he's the finishing touch. He's the one creating those opportunities. And so, and he brings out the best in KK and in Robinson as well. So like I said, I hope they get to stay together for a while and rediscover that magic they had at the beginning of the season, because that's a big weapon for the Canes, being able to roll 4 lines when most teams can only successfully or expect success out of 2 or 3.
Yeah. And again, they can play more minutes. They're capable of it. Don't forget, last year, of course, Kotkaniemi and Robinson were on that line with Natchez, so they were playing second line minutes last year and did well. And of course, Taylor Hall, he can play extra minutes as well. So I think there's definitely an opportunity for them. For me, they could be one of the better fourth lines in the league, and the matchups they're going to get are going to be really favorable. You know, it's interesting. Last night, I ended up watching part of the game on the Washington broadcast because ESPN had a bit of a problem for me with the Canes broadcast. So I ended up watching part of the Washington one. It was fine. But you know what? They were raving about Eric Robinson. They said, man, this guy, he's big. He's a big man. He can skate like the wind. He's really good out there with the puck. And this guy, he's got 4 goals in 9 games. He's a handful, and I thought, wow, that's good words for Eric. And sometimes I think we take him for granted, but he's growing with the Canes for sure. And, when they decided to re-up him for another 4 years, I think it was obvious what they were thinking with him. So that's good stuff. Okay. So a lot of good things happening, some not so good, as we say, some work in progress. And I guess when you take a look at the current power play numbers in the NHL, it's kind of funny to see the Canes second last, sitting in 31st place with a whopping 12.5% rate. And by the way, the leader is up around 37, I think, right now. So that just gives you an idea of the difference in the success of some power plays and the Hurricanes. And the fact the Canes have been winning without a power play is even more kind of astounding. Erin, what are your thoughts on the power play, and where do we go from here?
Well, I posted something on Twitter last night that I said that if you come to me now and you tell me that the biggest problem with the Canes power play is execution, I will enthusiastically agree and ask you whether you think that a firing squad or a guillotine would be better. Because that's how bad it's gotten. It's just, and it's frustrating because you see when they look like they know what they're doing, even if they don't score, you see what the vision is. Like the first power play last night against the Capitals, the top unit was moving well. They were getting chances. I think they had several shots on goal. And then it just completely collapsed. They had 5 total power play opportunities, even though one of them ended up being kind of that hybrid 4-on-4 situation. But 5 total opportunities. And they were crucial, especially towards the end of the game when all they needed to do was get another goal to tie it, or maybe then they needed 2 because the Caps scored again. But, when they were in that position where a goal would have made all the difference in the momentum, the power play just sucks the momentum out of the game. Mm-hmm. And that's not sustainable. I'm going back to Rod Brind'Amour's word that he used about things at the beginning of the season when he said that the injuries on the defensive core and having to play with rookies wasn't sustainable. Well, it turned out better than it probably could have, but you still need your defensive core back before, we get into the really serious part of the season where everyone's jockeying for those playoff spots, So right now I look at the power play and I think, what is it exactly? What is it? Yeah. Because when you look at the stats, and I know that you guys have already talked about this a little bit, they're creating chances. They don't, things. They're getting the expected goals are there, to a certain extent, but it's not happening. They're not finishing. So that's when I have to start asking: is this just a case of the system they're creating, even though it generates chances, is too much for the players they have to be able to get that finishing? Do they need to alter the system to be more realistic about what the players on the ice can actually do? I don't know. It's a mystery to me. I think that they have to do something. I don't know if they need a different voice in the room. We've talked about that before too. Yeah. Do they need a designated power play coach? Not because the things that they're trying to do are, inherently bad, but because it's not getting through somehow, and the execution then isn't there.
No,
I don't know what you guys think about that.
No, I think you're on the right track, Erin. Rachel, what have you seen with the power play?
it's really lacked some zest. There's just not much life on it. The attack is just, it's a wet blanket. But yeah, I have noticed, they've heated up a little bit on the power play, which is good, and they've been incorporating more puck movement. But they need to really incorporate more of a net front presence. I believe in the last game against the Capitals, it was like, I didn't notice it until right there at the end with the 6-on-4 situation where they even had someone out front. So they definitely need to make sure they have more presence, keep that puck moving, and cause as much chaos as possible, while that can also put holes in the defense with the power play. Ultimately, fortune favors the bold. So, yeah.
Well, those are good points. And, it's interesting because we've talked about a net front presence forever. I think in previous podcasts, we said, the power play, they need two things in terms of trying to get the puck in the net. One of them is a net front presence. And second of all, someone that can really fire the puck. But, there's two things that I see that I kind of get concerned about. One of them is zone entries. They had a lot of trouble in the game against the Caps, particularly, and in some of the other games as well. They've been struggling to get the puck in and get set up, and that's a concern. And to the same end, they've been struggling on the faceoffs. Sebastian Aho has really, really struggled on power play faceoffs. And, if you don't get puck possession, if it's up in the opposing zone, you got a face-off up there and you can't get puck possession, what are you doing? You're heading back to your zone and you're trying to come into the zone, and they haven't been effective at that. So, I think, gosh, it's just a whole series of things that you'd like to see them do better. Where does it go? What do you do with this now? Katie, what would you do?
I almost would just go back to square one and reimagine the power play and mix it up enough that there's not this kind of malaise that they can sink back into. If necessary to spark them, split up Aho and Jarvis. The second power play unit is not working. It just is not working. As much as I like Stankoven and Blake on 5-on-5, I do not like with that particular unit, especially with the 2 D-men. I thought perhaps Walker deserved some looks on the power play, but I'm not sold at all. I'm really not sold on Miller. I don't know where to go from there. No. Perhaps even a 5-forward unit would be something different to create some more opportunities and challenge the guys. Okay, here's Aho's unit, here's Jarvis's unit. Now let's see who can actually produce. Give them a minute each and go from there. When it comes to the net front, they've been putting Svech there a lot, and I think he's miscast. He is completely miscast as a net front presence. I know he's the biggest body out there, and that's where that logic is coming from. But I think that somebody like Stankoven or Jarvis makes more sense there. So if you're going to leave Aho and Jarvis together, did I say Aho? Stankoven or Blake would make a better net front presence. They've tried Blake there a little bit, but I'd like to see Stankoven there. Stankoven's really, really good in the front of the crease. I know you technically would like to have 2 centers on your 2 different power play units, but if you load up power play 1 with Aho and with Stankoven on it, and let Stankoven go net front and dig out pucks, and then give them a mandate. You have got to put the puck on net. Jarvis, shoot. Svech, shoot. Aho, shoot. Gostisbehere, drive in and shoot, because you're going to have Stankoven in the front to help take away eyes. You are going to have your wingers driving in from the other side looking for rebounds. This team is so good at puck retrievals, and that includes their top guys. Give them a chance to go and retrieve some pucks if it doesn't go in, or let Stankoven be the one who's there to battle and knock it in front of the goal. I mean, wasn't his first goal with the Canes a tip? Was it not power play?
Yes, it was.
That was his first goal with the Canes. Put him there. put Stankoven net front. Figure out power play 2, and either they don't take faceoffs or they only play the last 20 seconds of the power play anyway. You need something else. You need an injection of life, and we saw Stankoven's willing to do it. Whether it's the fight from last night or the battles in the corners or being net front, he will give the attitude and the fight and the snarl and the energy that would pep that group right up.
And he would also help with the zone entries as well. Interesting thing about Logan, of course, he was schooled by Joe Pavelski on those tips. You know, Joe was probably the best. So so he's very good in front of the net, as you say. He loves to get in front of the net. He's going to pick up rebounds. He's going to deflect it, whatever the case is. And I agree with you. He should be on that top line. Now, we could put Kotkaniemi at center on the number 2 unit. That's fine. He can go up there. I mean, they don't. He's sitting on the sidelines right now. Put him in. He's playing with some energy, and he'd probably enjoy getting back in the power play. So I think you're on to something. I really believe they've got to make some changes in the personnel. I really do. And whether it's Stankoven coming up or Blake or somebody else, they've got to do something to shake this group up because they're just not getting it done. And you can't sustain a winning streak or any kind of success rate without your special teams and in particular your power play. We've seen this before, right? Where they've really struggled. They've never been down at 12.5, but we've gone through discussions where they've really been in a world of hurt. And they've got to figure it out. And it could come back to as simple as what you said too, Erin. Maybe they need a power play coach, somebody that comes in and all he does is work the power play, and his success on the team is determined by how well they do, because it's just not working that well. In any case, speaking about special teams, just for a couple of minutes on this, Canes are not where they normally are on the PK as well. They're usually 1 or 2, right? They've been up there forever. This year they're sitting at number 10, 81.8%. That's not really, they're giving up power play goals. I mean, last night they gave up one that was critical to the game. They're still in the game. Power play goal happens. They're done. And this is unusual. And it might come back to something as simple as what we were talking about before. Some of these extended, tight situations where they're playing many games in a short period of time is wearing out one of their top penalty killers, and that would be Jordan Staal. And so, and they don't have their best penalty killer outside of the goalie, and that's Jacob Slavin. So, I think for me, I'm not as concerned about the PK. I think they'll get it turned around and right the ship. I mean, they've been trying. One of the goals last night, of course, they had Alex Nikishin with Joel Nystrom out there. If you've got like Jalen Chatfield and Jacob Slavin, it's a different ball of wax. So, any thoughts on the PK that you just want to throw in before we move on to the next point? We're okay. Okay,
yeah, we're okay.
PK is fine. Okay, so now we looked at all this kind of stuff, and the Canes continue to win despite bad power play, less than what they would normally have in the PK, some challenges with some of the lines. They keep winning. And the question is, how are they doing it? What's actually working for them? Erin?
Well, I'm going to jump on one little thing that I found really interesting is that we've noticed that they're getting some more rush offense than they have been in the past, and that's something that I think that it's been a vision of Eric Tulsky's for a long time. Not so much just the rush offense itself. That's a nice sort of subset of what they're going for. But back in 2013, Eric Tulsky presented a research paper at the MIT Sloan Sports Analytics Conference about the difference in generating offensive chances between the typical dump and chase method and controlled zone entries. And the conclusion, if this paper is out there on the internet, I will warn you that it is extremely dense, and I was not able to understand probably a third of it. But the conclusion was that carrying the puck through the neutral zone and into the offensive zone creates better offensive chances and more sustainable offense than the typical dump and chase method that teams had used a lot prior to that and continue to use even now. And the Canes are one of those teams that continues to do a lot of dump and chase. It takes a lot of skill to get that puck through the neutral zone. It takes very fast skating. It takes, extremely good puck control. It takes good decision making about passing the puck to other players that are along there with you to get it in and to make those zone entries happen. We just talked about how the Canes are struggling with that a little bit on the power play. Yeah. But at 5-on-5, some of the lines, and I would point to the Stankoven line on this, some of the lines are getting to be quite good at getting into the zone with possession and not losing the puck. I think that's where you go back to what they wanted from a player like Martin Necas was they wanted him to be able to do that. And Katie, I know that he does that in Colorado. He can carry the puck through as many zones as you want him to carry it through. The difference is that when he gets into the zone, there have to be other players with him to support him on that puck. And there was never anyone on the Canes who could match that speed of his and just, be right there with him. With Stankoven, you've got a lot of speed, but it's more of a manageable level of speed for the other players. He can get the puck to and through the neutral zone, passing back and forth with Blake. I've seen that. And now with Ehlers, who's also extremely fast. That line is going to be doing a really good job of entering the offensive zone with full control of the puck, and that does make a difference into how often they're able to score. So I think we're going to see more of that, and I think that is one of the things that's been working for them because we've seen it on some of the other goals. And there, again, you can point to, when you're talking about the fourth line, you can point to Eric Robinson. Yeah. He's extremely good at getting into the zone with possession of the puck because, again, he's quite fast. So all of that is, I think, what they're working towards, and it's exciting to see because we've seen the dump and chase forever, the forecheck and grind. We know it works for them. We know it works for Florida. The interesting thing is Florida is a master of both. If you watch how the Florida Panthers play, they are extremely good at dumping the puck in and regaining possession of it, but they're also extremely good at those controlled zone entries, getting the puck deep, carrying it in at 5-on-5. And that's how they manage to get as much offense as they do. So this is exciting to see.
Well, and Mike Kelly, who is the FanDuel analytics guru, who's been on some of the broadcasts, has been really hyping the point that the Canes scoring off the rush is near the top of the league. I think at one point they might have been at the top, which is really something. And you know what? I think a lot of that comes back to what you're saying too, Erin. If you think about Blake, Stankoven, and of course Nikolaj Ehlers on that line now, all three of them can get the puck into the zone quickly. And, they seem to be finding a way. And sometimes the D guys are going up with them. I've seen Walker up many times and Nikishin and so on. So it's really working for them. And I think you've hit something very, very well. Rachel, anything else that you've seen that you kind of put your finger on to say, boy, this is why they're winning?
Goaltending. All three of them have been incredible. I have loved Bussy's game. I was a little skeptical when he first came in, first NHL game for a goalie, but he did incredible in the AHL. He was one of the top goalies in the AHL. Yes. And that has carried over into the NHL. I've seen him make some really incredible saves. And then aside from just him, Pyotr Kochetkov missed, the first 10 games or so? And he came in shutout in Madison Square Garden. That's pretty big. Ouch. And, Steady Freddy. Steady Freddy being who he is and keeping those pucks out of the net. Wish him the best on that injury from the Capitals game that didn't really look too great. Hopefully just precautionary. But, goaltending has been making so much of a difference. And I love to see it.
I think the Canes are in a good situation to have three goalies that they can roll. There's always a concern with Fred, for sure. I thought he played a tremendous game last night. He made several 10-bell saves that kind of kept them in the game. And frankly, that injury to him was just kind of a fluke thing. And all of a sudden, he's going off the ice and he might have a concussion. So, we hope that it was just the protocol, which I think it might have been. I think he's probably okay and will come back. But you always have to be mindful that he's a guy that's struggled with injury throughout his career. And the other thing we did mention on the goaltending, of course, is Fred's plan to go to the Olympics with Denmark. So we're going to have to see how that plays out, and hopefully, and that's going to be he's going to get some heavy play for sure. So we'll have to see how that affects him when he comes back as well. So anyway, I think the goaltending's in great shape, and we talked a little bit about this seriously about Brandon Bussey and what might happen to him. It's not ideal for the Canes to keep 3 goalies. We know that, right? So we've talked about that, and that's for sure, because they've got to play. They've got to keep playing. And so we're going to have to see how that plays out. We talked that, Caden Primo's now down in Chicago and could be recalled in a situation if they needed him. So they do have more depth. And Amir Miptikov is starting to figure out North American hockey as well. So he's played here before, so it's good for him to kind of get his game back in gear. So we'll see what happens with that. Now, let's go on to something else I wanted to just talk about for a minute. And this is kind of off the ice. The Canes are always kind of being mentioned with anything that's going on in the rumor mill in the NHL. And I noticed a couple of things in the last couple of days that kind of caught my attention. I just want to bring them up and get any comments you might have. Frank Saravalli, who's out of Daily Faceoff, he comes out with, rumors fairly frequently. And he was just saying that, he said, I do think the Canes are one of the teams poking around on acquiring a center. I don't think Kadri is one of the only guys that would be on their list. So it's interesting. We've heard all these words about Nazem Kadri not having the Canes on his list that he would accept. But here's Saravalli saying that maybe he is on the Canes list and they're interested in him. David Pagnotta, who's out of the fourth period, said, I look to Utah, Carolina, Ottawa, Anaheim in a similar position to Montreal. Erin, you don't have to strike now, but these are teams that are looking to make a big move. So again, we always hear about the Canes when there's a big move, but there are a couple of teams that are starting to fall out. Okay, and that's the reason I bring it up right now. We know that the Calgary Flames, and it looks like as well, the Nashville Predators are going to be probably selling earlier than later. Do we think there's anything that might be a possibility there? Erin?
Well, I'm pretty sure that if a center who fits their needs becomes available, they will be all over that. I'm not entirely sure yet if the centers that have been listed, or mentioned are the ones that they would go for. There's we've talked about Kadri. I mean, I think that they would probably like to have him if they could. It is a long contract still. And the biggest issue would be, what would Calgary, what would they want? And would he sign in Carolina? Or, I mean, it's because it's a long contract, that's not an issue, but would he want to be in Carolina? You don't want to pick up a player that doesn't want to be. And we might very well be on his 13-team no trade list, in which case it's not even worth talking about. As far as Ryan O'Reilly is another one from Nashville, I think that, the Canes might be interested there. But again, how much would they be expected to give up in a move like that? And what happens then to the players that are currently on the team? I think that one of the biggest issues would be that if you like Logan Stankoven at center and you like how he's developing at center and you want him to keep playing there, then bringing in a veteran player, you have to decide what you're going to do about that, and that's a lot of moving parts to think about. Now, I could see, because of all of the injuries to the blue line, I could see that if a slightly better than Mike Riley defenseman was to become available and they were to, maybe move Riley to an 8th spot and have this unknown person at 7th, those are the kinds of players I would expect them to be keeping an early eye out for, because you want to get those players before everybody else realizes that they need them towards the end of the season when when the trade deadline is happening. So other than that, those aren't the kind of big swings I think that the team would make. I think if they were looking to make a big swing, it would be, for someone who's definitely going to improve the group as it currently stands. So we'll see what happens there.
Well, I think you've hit a very interesting point. this big swing question, right? And we talked a little bit about this, is who comes out? Like, if they pick up a forward or a defenseman that is a big swing player, you have to believe they're going to jump into, top 4 minutes or, top 6 forward position. And that Eric Tulsky, he likes those big swings. We've seen him do it in the past. So, it's going to be interesting. Of course, the Canes are rumored in any deal that's of any significance, because, of course, Eric always says he's looking for anybody or anything that might help the team. But, you don't really want to change up a lot. Like, I'm not interested to lose, Svechnikov or Blake or, Stankoven or any of those guys. And, if you get a top 6 forward, and we talked about a possible winger coming in, where do they go? That's a tough one. So, I'm not sure how it all works. I think it's just fun to listen to what they're saying out there and kind of chuckle. But I think the Canes will make some moves before the deadline. I really do. I think they'll need some areas of improvement. And for sure, I don't think they're the cup team yet, but they're going the right way. And I think we'll see some moves before it's done. So it's all good. Okay, let's wrap things up a little bit with closing thoughts. The Canes have got 4 of their next 6 on the road. What are we thinking about as we look forward to the next couple of weeks here with the Hurricanes? Katie?
I think I just want to see the Canes simplify and play their game. Not try to get too fancy, not try to color outside of the box at all. Just stick with who they are and what's worked, and I think that they will give themselves the best chance to win that way. The one exception to that, perhaps, again, like we mentioned before, would be the power play. That might need a little bit of a shakeup, but 31st worst, I don't think that there's a whole lot that can hurt them anymore at this point. Can only go up from there. So, but outside of that, just simplify, play to their identity, play for each other, and road game, home game, whatever, I think they'll be just fine. I think they'll continue pacing alongside the Devils for tops in the Metro.
Yeah, the Devils, they're definitely off to a great start. Rachel, what are your thoughts as we round it up today?
Basically same thing as Katie said.
Okay, so you're supporting Katie, and that's great. That's great. Erin?
Well, I think I'm going to give credit to something Katie said in an earlier podcast, is that we want them to win the games they should win. And I think that is you can forgive a loss against the Capitals at the end of a tough schedule, because that's always been a difficult team for them to beat anyway. Even though they have been struggling this year, that doesn't make them any less physical, and they're always going to be that big physical team. So you can kind of look at that and say it's a one-off, it doesn't matter. But I don't want to see them losing games that they should easily win. I mean, I think the next 2 are the Canucks and the Oilers. Is that right?
Yeah. Yes.
And that's at home. They should win both of those games. Neither of those teams is doing very well right now. There should not be any question that I know that McDavid is going to do his utmost to get some points on the board, because he can never get past Jacob Slavin. So unless Slavin suddenly shows up again in these next 2 games, I think there will be a lot of that kind of thing going on. So they're going to need to limit that. But as far as the rest of them go, you look at the teams they're facing up against, and there's at least 3 of those teams they should win those games. So win the games they're supposed to win. And then let the rest take care of itself, understanding that you may not be able to win the games that are a closer fight when you're in this situation with so many guys out with injury. Do the best you can in those games too. Never give up on a game, but get the ones that you should have, because I think that's always the most frustrating thing, when they end up losing what should have been an easy games to win. So,
no, I think that's exactly right. They're going to have a back-to-back at the end of this week, so that's that's going to be a bit of a challenge for them. I don't see any wins as easy. I think the Canes have some areas they've got to work on. I'm not particularly excited about the defensive pairing of Walker and K'Andre Miller right now. I think they're a little bit off, and I think that's a bit of a concern. So something they've got to try to figure out how to get that sorted out. they got to sort out the power play. They're not going to keep winning if the power play doesn't score. They're going to lose games. And their goaltending has been holding them in most of these games. And, they've been getting some great 5-on-5 goals. But I think that's for sure. So unless they can solve the power play and they can sort out a little, some tweaks on the blue line, and Sebastian Aho's got to be Sebastian Aho. We've talked about this many, many times, but I'm still waiting for him to be, kind of more dominant when he's on the ice. I had some folks reaching out to me the other day on X saying he's almost invisible at times. What's wrong with Aho? So that's again something we've been talking about for a long time. But yeah, 4 games on the road coming up. They've been playing great on the road, so hopefully they'll have some great success again. So anyway, lots of fun as always. Lots of controversy, lots of things to talk about with the Hurricanes, and I'm sure when we get back in a couple of weeks, we'll have lots to talk about then. Rachel, thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciated it, and we'll be following you very, very closely. Of course, Queen of the Puck on your Substack and also all your good work on X. So thanks again for doing that. For those of you who've been watching or listening, of course, we're ecstatic you spent time with us, and we really appreciate that. If you like this episode, please press the like button. If you have comments or questions or you just want to say hi, please put those in the comment section below. And if you want to be alerted of future episodes of Storm Tracker, please press the subscribe and the bell buttons, and you'll be made aware just as soon as they're available. As always, thanks so much for spending time with us, and we look forward to getting together with you real soon right here on Storm Tracker.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like, subscribe, and tell your friends for everything with the Canes you need. Storm Tracker.